Hello, I hope you're doing well. In the previous episode, we explored the fear of making the wrong decision, that pressure we feel when we believe that one choice could determine our entire future. But even after we decide, uncertainty does not disappear completely. We can choose a direction and still have questions. We can begin a new stage without knowing where it will lead. We can move forward and continue to doubt, because making a decision does not always give us every answer. Sometimes it only allows us to begin discovering them. And perhaps an important part of life consists precisely of this. Learning to live without understanding everything. From an early age, we are taught to search for answers. A question appears incomplete until we find its solution. A problem must be resolved. A doubt must disappear. And a story needs an ending that explains everything that happened. This way of thinking is useful in many areas. It allows us to learn, investigate, organize reality, and make more conscious decisions. But life does not always behave like a problem we can solve. Some questions have no immediate answer, others change as we change, and some may never have a completely satisfying explanation. We may wonder why someone acted in a particular way, why a relationship that seemed important ended, why an opportunity for which we had prepared never arrived, why we had to pass through a particular stage, or whether the direction we are following will truly take us towards the life we want. We search for an explanation, because we believe that understanding what happened will restore our peace, and sometimes it does. Understanding a situation can help us integrate it. Putting an experience into words can relieve some pain. Recognizing a pattern can prevent us from repeating it. But not every answer is available when we need it. Sometimes we know only part of the story. Other people have their own fears, motives, and contradictions. Circumstances are shaped by many different variables, and we do not yet know what meaning an experience will have when we observe it from the future. However, the mind is uncomfortable with empty spaces. When it cannot find an answer, it tries to create one. It interprets silences, reviews conversations, connects events that may not have been related, imagines what other people are thinking, and transforms a possibility into certainty. Not because we have evidence, but because an explanation, even a painful one, may feel easier to tolerate than not knowing. We may think, they did not reply because I am not important. I did not receive that opportunity because I am not good enough. This relationship ended because I did everything wrong. I have not reached my goal because I have wasted too much time. These conclusions may offer a temporary sense of order, but they do not always represent reality. Sometimes, they are attempts to close a question that is still open. The problem is that we may build our identity around an answer that was never confirmed. Not knowing can feel uncomfortable. But filling the space with the cruelest possible interpretation does not protect us either. Perhaps honesty means being able to recognize, I do not know every reason. I cannot know what the other path would have looked like. I do not know with certainty what that person is thinking. I do not yet understand the place this experience will occupy in my life. These statements may feel incomplete, but they may also be more truthful. Recognizing that we do not know does not demonstrate weakness. It demonstrates our ability to distinguish between what we know and what we are imagining. Even so, living without all the answers does not mean that we should stop looking for them. It does not mean giving up on understanding ourselves, or passively accepting every situation. We can ask questions, find information, speak honestly, reflect on our patterns, and request explanations when they are necessary. But we also need to recognize when the search is no longer helping us. There comes a point when thinking does not provide any new information. It only repeats the same possibilities. We return to one conversation again and again, analyze every word, imagine alternative responses, and wonder what might have happened if we had acted differently. But the past does not change, and the clarity we are looking for may not exist there. Reflection then becomes rumination. We are not understanding the experience more clearly. We are trying to find a certainty that will allow us to stop feeling. Perhaps we believe that once we have the perfect explanation, we will be able to continue, but sometimes movement must begin before the answer arrives. We can continue living even when part of the story remains unresolved. We can accept an ending without understanding every reason behind it. We can begin a project without knowing whether it will succeed. We can meet someone without demanding to know which place they will occupy in our future. We can move through a difficult stage without immediately discovering the lesson it contains. This does not mean that nothing matters to us. It means that we will not place our life on hold until all of reality makes sense. Many answers appear with time, not because time magically explains what happened, but because we change. We gain experience. We recognize patterns that we could not see before. We stop looking at a situation only through our immediate pain and begin to understand it as part of a wider story. Something that feels like a failure today may later show us that we were trying to remain in a place that no longer represented us. A goodbye that currently feels only like a loss may eventually help us recognize what we need in a relationship. A period of confusion may become the space in which we begin to build a more personal direction, but we do not need to promise ourselves that everything will eventually make perfect sense. Some questions will remain open, some experiences will never fit completely inside an explanation, and some losses will continue to feel unfair, even after we learn to live with them. Accepting this can be difficult, because it requires us to recognize that our understanding has limits. We cannot observe the entire story at once. We can see only the part we are living now. It is like walking at night with a small light. We cannot illuminate the entire path, but perhaps we can see enough to take the next step. We often believe that we need to know the destination before we begin. We want to know who we will become, where we will end up, which relationships will remain, and whether all our effort will be worthwhile. But many important stages of our lives began without those answers. We started studying without knowing exactly which professionals we would become. We met people without imagining how deeply they would change our stories. We arrived in places that did not appear important, but eventually transformed us. We made small decisions that opened paths we had never planned. Life is often understood by looking backwards, but it must be lived forwards. And living forwards involves not knowing. It involves walking with a partial view, reconsidering our direction, learning from what we encounter, and accepting that clarity is also created through experience. Perhaps that is why we find transitional stages so difficult. When something has ended, but we do not know what will begin next. When we are no longer exactly the person we were, but we have not yet met the person we are becoming. When we have stopped believing in an old answer, but have not found a new one. These spaces can make us feel lost. Society often asks us what we are doing, what our plan is, where we see ourselves in a few years. It seems that we must always have a clear direction and a coherent explanation. For this reason, we may feel ashamed to answer, "I don't know. I do not know whether I will remain here. I do not know what I want to do next. I do not know how this relationship will end. I do not know whether this project will work. I do not yet know who I want to be in this new stage." But not knowing does not always mean being lost. Sometimes it means that we are listening before deciding, that an old answer no longer serves us, and that we do not want to replace it immediately with another one, simply to feel safe. There is a difference between having no direction and allowing a direction to reveal itself gradually. We may not know the whole path, and still know which values we want to preserve. Perhaps we do not know where we will live in a few years, but we may know that we want to build a life with greater calm, more honesty, more autonomy, more connection, or work that holds genuine meaning for us. We may not know the final form, but we can recognize the qualities we want to protect while moving forward. Values do not remove uncertainty, but they can function as a compass when a map does not yet exist. We can ask ourselves, what kind of person do I want to be while I move through this stage? How do I want to treat the people around me? Which boundaries do I need to respect? Which small action would be consistent with what I value? These questions do not resolve our entire future, but they return us to the present, because when we search for every answer, the mind constantly moves towards what comes next. What will happen? How will it end? Will it have been worthwhile? Meanwhile, we may stop noticing the life that is already happening. We wait to feel safe before allowing ourselves to enjoy it. We wait to understand everything before resting. We wait for a final plan before believing that we are moving forward. And the present becomes a waiting room once again. But perhaps today, we do not need a complete explanation. Perhaps we need to eat slowly, sleep, call someone, complete one responsibility, go for a walk, write about what we feel, or simply accept that this day does not need to resolve everything we still do not know. Living without all the answers also requires patience. Not the passive patience of someone who abandons all responsibility, but the patience of someone who understands that certain processes cannot be accelerated. We can create the right conditions, take steps, open conversations, prepare ourselves, but we cannot force every form of clarity to appear immediately. A relationship needs time to show us what it can become. A new city needs time before it feels like home. A project needs time to find its form. And we also need time to understand who we are after a change. Impatience can lead us to accept premature answers. We choose a direction simply to escape uncertainty. We return to a familiar situation because the open space frightens us. We quickly label an experience as a success or a failure. But perhaps it is still too early to understand it. Some things need to remain open for a while, not so that we can avoid them, but so that reality can provide information we do not yet have. We can also learn to live with questions without making them the center of every day. A question can accompany us without occupying everything. We can say, "I do not know how this will end, but I can be here today. I do not know the answer, but I can continue caring for myself. I do not know which decision I will make, but I can observe what I feel without pressuring myself. I do not fully understand what happened, but I do not need to punish myself in order to find an explanation." This way of relating to uncertainty does not remove fear, but it can reduce our internal struggle, because we stop demanding an impossible ability from ourselves, knowing a future that does not yet exist, and we begin to develop a more realistic capacity, remaining present while the answer takes shape. There is something deeply human about not knowing. Our beliefs change, our desires evolve, reality surprises us, and every answer creates new questions. Perhaps a life without uncertainty would also be a life without discovery. If we knew every encounter, every goodbye, and every outcome in advance, we might avoid some disappointments, but we would also lose the possibility of being surprised, of learning, of changing our minds, of discovering an ability we do not yet know we possess, and of finding paths we would never have chosen from within the safety of our plans. The unknown is not always a threat. It can also be the place where something new begins. We do not need to idealize it. Uncertainty can be exhausting, especially when it affects our health, home, relationships, or stability. At those times, seeking support and creating small certainties becomes important. A routine, a safe conversation, a place to rest, a plan for the next few days. We may not be able to control the entire situation, but we can create some points of support. Living without all the answers does not mean living without any structure. It means creating a form of stability that is flexible enough to support us while certain questions remain open. We can know what we need today, even if we do not know what we will need next year. We can decide on our next step without defining the entire journey. We can care for what depends on us and leave space for what we cannot yet resolve. Perhaps peace will not arrive when we finally possess every answer. Perhaps it will appear when we stop needing all of them to arrive at the same time. When we understand that a complete life also contains questions, periods of confusion, contradictions, paths without names, and stages whose meaning we will recognize only later. So today, I would like to leave you with a question. Which part of your life are you trying to resolve completely, when perhaps you only need to learn how to accompany it, while it remains open? You do not need to stop searching for clarity, but perhaps you can observe whether that search is still helping you, or whether it has become a way of postponing life until you feel completely certain. Not knowing the answer does not mean that you cannot continue. Sometimes, life does not give us a map, only a small light, and perhaps that is enough to take the next step. In the next episode, we will explore the difference between what we can control and what we need to learn to release. Not so that we can live with indifference, but so that we can use our energy where it can genuinely transform something. If this episode has brought you something valuable, you can support the project by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Together, we can continue building this space for reflection, awareness, and growth. Thank you for joining me. Take care, enjoy your day, and remember, you do not need to understand your entire life in order to live it. Sometimes it is enough to care for this moment, remain close to what you value, and allow some answers to arrive while you continue walking. See you soon.